Did your favorite NFL team perform according to their expectations this year? If you even had any, that is. Well, today we're finding out. Today we are going to tier list teams based on their preseason expectations. There are 7 categories in this tier list. The first tier is the where the did that come from tier. Any team that super exceeded their expectations, this is that tier. The next one is give yourself a pat on the Shermer. Not a euphemism, just saying, hey, give yourself a pat on the back. But with this tier, we honor NFL coaching legend Pat Shermer. The next tier on this list is the a bunch of dumbasses need to get a Super Bowl tattoo removed because you had really high expectations, someone got a tattoo on their ass, and now they have to set up a second appointment. The fourth tier is Jeff Fisher. This is exactly what you think it is. Mediocre expectations, mediocre results, per expectations. The fifth tier is rebuild all year, but phase 1 is complete, meaning it wasn't the best year, but watch out for 2026. These motherfuckers could ball. The second to bottom tier is the Kansas City Football Chiefs. Obviously, the Chiefs are going to be in this tier. This is for teams that had super high expectations, but for this tier, you fell so below your expectations that people are going to be like, what the hell happened? And spoiler alert, the Chiefs are in this tier, but they won't be the only one. And finally, the last tier, what the did you expect? Basically for teams who had Jets level expectations. So let's get started. The first tier is the Arizona Cardinals. I am going to put them in the what the did you expect tier. This team was an abomination from start to finish in 2025. Yeah, they upgraded their pass rush, but their offense was wildly inconsistent. They old yellered Jonathan Gannon after a 3-14 season, and now they have belief in Mike, definitely not Matt LaFleur at home, LaFleur. This team didn't have a whole lot of Super Bowl aspirations, even though they had better Super Bowl odds than both the Seahawks and the Patriots somehow. A lot of problems arose, however, such as their losses in one-score games, and as a result of that, Jonathan Gannon lost his job. It just seems like 500 for this team was an entire lifetime ago, especially given the fact that the Cardinals had a 9-game losing streak to end the year last year. So that justifies that tier. Next up is the Atlanta Falcons, mediocre. Where does mediocrity go? To the Jeff Fisher tier. They have fun fantasy football pieces, and their pass rush significantly improved pre-felony. They weren't expected to be an excellent team even with the super good and flashy offensive pieces, and they didn't exceed their expectations. They were just kind of right around where people expected them to be. Bijan Robinson was excellent. Kyle Pitts showed up exactly when it was least convenient for your fantasy team. Drake London was excellent until he got hurt. They got rid of Raheem Morris, they're about to get rid of Kirk, and now they're stuck with Kevin Stefanski and Michael Penix. Even with their weak NFC South schedule, they couldn't win games consistently until they were mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. They finished 7-10, and now they're entering the Kevin Stefanski era. But as for 2025, it was defined by mediocrity with some fun flashes. You have been summoned to the Jeff Fisher tier. Next up, the Baltimore Ravens. They are going to the a bunch of dumbasses had to get a Super Bowl tattoo removed. Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry will always provide Super Bowl hopes as long as Derrick Henry's diet plan solely consists of throwing uneaten cupcakes in the trash. But even with Jackson and Henry, they performed to an extremely mediocre degree. As a result, John Harbaugh was summoned to New York, where his #1 job will be to tell Cam Scadaboo that he's a good boy. They had an offseason with high expectations, and week 1 against the Bills showed that they can hang with anybody. But after that, they significantly slowed down. The Tyler Loop missed field goal at the end of the season ultimately did them in, and as a result, the Ravens were eliminated from the playoffs and had a losing record by the slimmest of margins. So that justifies that tier. The Buffalo Bills, they're going to the same tier. Because before the season, Peter Schrager was like, the Buffalo Bills are Super Bowl champions, which just every commentator need that viral clip just to increase their credibility if it so happens. The Bills had enough of Sean McDermott's haul of very good seasons, so they kicked him to the curb after Bo Nix barely beat them with a broken ankle. Anytime someone talks about the Bills being scary, they never talk about the Bills themselves. They always talk about Josh Allen and Josh Allen alone. Josh Allen is impeccable, but he'll only get you so far, no matter how good your running back is. So shave your butt hair and remove that tattoo. Next up is the Carolina Panthers. They are going to the rebuild all year, but phase 1 is complete tier. The Panthers were kind of sparingly and inconsistently exciting, but they were just good enough to take that NFC South crown, which is like being the smartest 6th grader in a room full of 5th graders. Bryce Young had an improved 2025, but he still struggled mightily at times. The Panthers were not expected to do well in the postseason against the Rams, but they still made it a contest nonetheless. But I do still classify them as a rebuilding team because they are still going through growing pains with Bryce Young, but there are pieces there, which is why phase 1 is complete. Adding Tedero McMillan clearly helped Bryce Young be more consistent. However, there still are a lot of question marks pertaining to the legitimacy of this franchise, a lot of them due to Bryce Young, and for good reason. Next up is the Chicago Bears, who are going right to the where the did that come from tier. It's always hard to predict how first-year coaches are going to do. Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams were an objectively good pairing, but we didn't know how good it was going to be. He helped unlock that Caleb Williams magic that a lot of people saw at USC, and there's a ton of reason for optimism right now. They just barely got knocked out of the playoffs by a very good Rams team. But winning a very good NFC North despite having the lowest preseason Super Bowl odds among any team in that division is very impressive. Where the did that come from tier? You have a new member. Next up is the Cincinnati Bengals. They are going to the Jeff Fisher tier. This franchise will never learn. They have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and a bunch of other players who they expect to take their side in a tense contract negotiation. The defense suffered badly under new defensive coordinator Al Golden, who apparently I'm supposed to be excited about, I guess. Having 3 of the literal best players in the NFL does wonders for a team's Super Bowl aspirations. Until they figure out their defense and stop having to rely on insert draft bust here to make a turnaround from abortion to decent, they won't be anything more than exciting. Next up is the Cleveland Browns, who are going right to the what the did you expect tier? And they're the Cleveland Browns. I've heard catchphrases help you catch on. It was a miserable season with a massive QB controversy because most of their new fans had an unhealthy emotional attachment to Deion Sanders. The defense was awesome, with Defensive Player of the Year Myles Garrett, Defensive Rookie of the Year Carson Schwessinger, and Defensive Coordinator who got deeply over by his own Team of the Year, Jim Schwartz. Also, Jim Schwartz sounds like what Germans wear when they exercise. Oh honey, get us a Jim Schwartz. I need to do pull-ups. Jim Schwartz, it, I'll move on. This season was a disaster, and it was expected to be a disaster, even with their 2 Pro Bowl QBs. Next up, the Dallas Cowboys, who are going to the a bunch of dumbasses had to get a Super Bowl tattoo removed. These schmucks always have Super Bowl hopes because they always get a ton of airtime on ESPN. Their offense was great, but their defense was a disaster, especially after trading Micah Parsons. Jerry Jones said, "We have to stop the run." In his effort to do that, his Dallas Cowboys defense allowed the most rushing touchdowns in the NFL. They ranked 5th worst in the NFL with negative 53.77 expected points contributed by the rushing defense and 7th worst at 4.7 yards per carry allowed. This team will never have Super Bowl hopes until Jerry Jones stops trying to convince everyone that he's still got it. It's honestly appalling how much he doesn't. As a result of the disappointing defense, a bunch of hookers that Jerry Jones needs a blue pill to sleep with will have to get a tattoo that they don't understand removed. Next up is the Denver Broncos, who are going right to the where the did that come from tier. I believed since last year, I'm gonna be honest. Bo Nix was efficient all year, but the defense was what truly put this team over the top. They vaunted themselves all the way to the number 1 seed thanks to that, but they fell flat on their face thanks to some snow and the fact that Bo Nix broke his right ankle when it was the least convenient. Is there ever a convenient time to break your ankle? I digress. Even with their breakout season coming to a halt, Denver exceeded everybody's expectations by going 14-3. We knew they were good, but we didn't know how good. Indeed, where the did that come from? The Detroit Lions are going right to the a bunch of dumbasses had to get a Super Bowl tattoo removed tier. Dan Campbell is the kind of coach that not only inspires his fan base to get Super Bowl tattoos every year, but they have to eat the tattoo needle when they're done. Detroit had super high expectations, even with them losing their 2 coordinators. They're extremely good on paper. They were excellent in 2024 and they needed a rebound, but injuries reared their ugly head again. In a division that was exactly as competitive as people expected it to be, the Lions inexplicably ended up in last place. They didn't totally shit the bed enough to qualify for the Kansas City Football Chiefs tier, but it was disappointing enough. They can easily rebound in 2026, they just can't share a practice facility with the 49ers. If you know, you know. Next up, the Green Bay Packers are going right to the "a bunch of dumbasses had to get a Super Bowl tattoo removed" tier. People were hyped after getting Micah Parsons. This team did genuinely have sincere Super Bowl aspirations, but they also got severely injured. Tucker Kraft and Micah Parsons both tore their ACLs. The entire team suffered brain aneurysms anytime they played in Chicago in the fourth quarter. It was a rough go of it. Despite all that, they gave Matt LaFleur a contract extension. They could come back and succeed in 2026, but it all depends on if they stay healthy and avoid monumental fourth quarter collapses. Next up, the Houston Texans are going right to the "give yourself a pat on the Shermer" tier. They didn't make it very far in the postseason. They went to the divisional round and stunk against the Patriots, but they came storming back after a start that disappointed everybody's expectations. Their stifling defense was enough to catapult them to a wild card playoff appearance, only for CJ Stroud to remove any credibility he had at all against the Patriots. Still, the Texans had a strong season where their defense was the true star of the show, and for that, you deserve a pat on the Shermer. The Indianapolis Colts. This is going to be my one exception to this tier. I'm going to put them in the "a bunch of dumbasses had to get a Super Bowl tattoo removed" tier. In the preseason, this team didn't have any Super Bowl aspirations. There was an extremely real QB competition between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, yet against all odds, Daniel Jones led them to a soaring 8-2 start, which led to the Super Bowl aspirations. But after that, the bottom fell out of them. The Colts lost 7 in a row to close out the year, and only the Cardinals had a worse losing streak to end the year. Like a Daniel Jones 90-yard rushing touchdown in 2020 that came up short by his own momentum, it was a stunning fall from grace. Both Jones and Richardson got hurt, which willed Philip Rivers right off of his couch and into unretirement mode. All that just for Philip Rivers to make a few extra $100,000 so we can spend money on his kids for Christmas this year. Now, I could put them in the "where the did that come from" tier based on all the crazy events that happened, but that's reserved for teams who defied expectations from start to finish, and I'm too lazy to make a special tier for the Colts. But you know who is going into the "where the did that come from" tier? The Jacksonville Jaguars. 4-13 a season prior, a new coach, a mostly similar system, a second overall pick that got hurt midway through the year, and all of a sudden, Jacoby Myers to the rescue? I don't know how that worked, but the acquisition of Jacoby Myers was somehow the missing piece in an offense that found a significantly unlocked Trevor Lawrence. Liam Cohen was arguably the best first-time head coach in 2025, and he was a major factor in the Jags defying every preseason expectation they had this year. The Kansas City Chiefs, of course they're going to the Kansas City Football Chiefs tier. Everyone expects the Chiefs to win the big dance every year because of Patrick Mahomes. And not only could they not do that this year, they weren't even close. After having the 4th best Super Bowl odds to begin the year, and honestly rightfully so, they ended the year at 6-11. This season was brutal for Chiefs fans who quickly had to remind Taylor Swift fans that yes, your favorite team can suck. The Super Bowl hangover that the Chiefs had this year proves once and for all that hangovers get significantly worse when you reach the age of 30. Patrick. I will say this. They aren't the only team that's going to be in this tier. For now, if you guys have liked this video so far, click the like button and subscribe to the channel. We do plenty of comedic shorts, and we're happy to have you for the off season. We have plenty of season and review videos coming up. We have plenty of short form content coming up. Free agency, the draft. We have a hell of a time. Subscribe to the channel, but for now, back to this video. Next up, we are going to talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. We are, of course, going to put them in the "what the did you expect" tier. The expectations for the Raiders weren't very high. They were modest, there was some potential, people liked Geno Smith, but people seem to forget that these are your Las Vegas Raiders. They're perpetually a mess until further notice. Ashton Genty was good at times, but he had a rookie year that fell below everybody's expectations, though he doesn't deserve a whole lot of blame for that. Brock Bowers was really good when healthy, but he was hurt a lot apparently because he wanted to relive his college scouting report. Geno Smith went back to his Jets days, and Pete Carroll was fired after only a year. The 2025 Raiders were a mess, but the 2026 Raiders are looking pretty good. Next, we're going to round out the AFC West with the Los Angeles Chargers. We are going to put them in the "a bunch of dumbasses had to get a Super Bowl tattoo removed" tier. Joe Alton, Rashawn Slater's losses made the Chargers O-line go from bad to holy kinds of awful. Even with that, the Chargers had their regular helpings of pretty good in the regular season, but collapsing when the moment got too bright. Even with Jim Harbaugh running an efficient operation when he could, the Chargers continued to be a wild card round loss waiting to happen. Next up, the other LA team, the Los Angeles Rams, we're going to put them in the give yourselves a pat on the Shermer tier. Most people had pretty high expectations for the Rams this year, even with Matthew Stafford dealing with a mysterious back injury. As it turns out, that back injury was caused by him carrying his team all the way to the NFC title game, with help from Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. That brave service led him all the way to the MVP award. The Rams were clearly one of the better teams in the league, though they ultimately came up just short. The Miami Dolphins are going right to the Jeff Fisher tier. The Tua Tagovailoa will he or won't he conversation has shifted fully to people who are concerned as to whether or not Tua will fall unconscious at the slightest gust of wind. Tua clearly regressed, and it cost offensive wizard Mike McDaniel his job. People expected mediocrity, and they got mediocrity at 7-10, even though they went on an insanity run after they fired their GM, Jeff Fisher tier. Next up is the Minnesota Vikings, who are also summoned to the Jeff Fisher tier. Little did I know that a Justin Jefferson highlight reel could aptly have Sarah McLachlan songs in the background. That's how poor this offense looked at times. JJ McCarthy was inconsistent and inefficient enough to the point that it got his GM fired. Thankfully, the defense performed well enough to the point that the Vikings were able to coerce Brian Flores into staying against his will. Brian Flores got a meaty contract extension, but the offensive inefficiency and deeply average season justifies the Jeff Fisher tier. Next up, the New England Patriots, who are going right to the where the did that come from tier. My preseason predicky video had them sneaking into the playoffs. Little did I know they'd sneak into the Super Bowl. Drake Al Gore May missed out on the MVP award by a margin that was so small, Bill Belichick started flirting with it. The Patriots did have a particularly weak schedule, which may justify the give yourselves a pat on the Shermer tier over the genuine disbelief tier. But Drake May being a legitimate MVP candidate and literally making the Super Bowl justifies this highest tier. The New Orleans Saints are going to the rebuilt all year, but phase one is complete tier. I love where this team is headed, but they aren't there quite just yet. They have a good foundation in an offensive-minded head coach, a quarterback they can actually get behind, and good draft capital to build good pieces around Tyler Shuck. It started really rough under Spencer Rattler, but winning 6 games this year is a step in the right direction. Were all of those wins either against NFC South teams or teams picking in the top 5 of this upcoming draft? Maybe. Yes, but you need a good foundation, and phase one of the Saints rebuild is complete. Next up, the New York Giants, who are going to the rebuild all year, but phase one is complete tier. The Giants also have a good foundation, which sounds good until you realize that Cam Scadaboo loves running through brick walls in his spare time. It's a foundation joke. Leave me alone. They fired Brian Dable midway through the season, but the offense made strides. If Jackson Dart and Cam Scadaboo can play like CTE doesn't come with a giant cash prize, I'll feel even more confident. So with great young pieces and a very experienced head coach in John Harbaugh, they have very clearly laid the foundation for a good rebuild. The New York Jets. Dude, what the actual Philadelphia Eagles are going to the a bunch of dumbasses had to get a Super Bowl tattoo removed tier. Thanks, Kevin Patullo. The Pittsburgh Steelers are also going to the a bunch of dumbasses had to get a Super Bowl tattoo removed tier. GM Omar Khan made a lot of acquisitions in this past offseason to give the Steelers legitimate Super Bowl aspirations if this were 6 years ago. Aaron Rodgers wanted another shot at a Super Bowl, and he figured the Pittsburgh Steelers would be the best chance at that. I'm assuming a lot of his fans did as well. However, this was still a Mike Tomlin-run franchise, which means they were destined for mediocrity. And yes, I am calling 10-7 mediocre. F you, this is my video. The Steelers are perpetually mediocre until further notice. The San Francisco 49ers. This might be a hot take, but I'm going to move them here. I'm going to put them in the give yourself a pat on the Shermer tier. And I say this because they dealt with debilitating injuries all year. The 49ers went way farther in the playoffs than they should have, thanks to injuries to Fred Warner, George Kittle, Bosa, Brock Purdy midway through the year, Brandon Ayuk's sanity, and it's too hard to keep track. But the 49ers were much more solid than they had any business being in 2025 because of all the injuries they dealt with. I like this team an awful lot, but they were just so deeply injured that once they reached the Super Bowl winner in the playoffs, they got the doors beaten off of them. And speaking of Super Bowl winners, the Seattle Seahawks are going right to the where the did that come from tier. Jesus, fellas, you exceeded everybody's expectations. They had plus 6,000 Super Bowl odds in the preseason, a lot of question marks, especially with their offensive line, and they answered all of those questions really soundly. Their defense was masterful, and their offense did what it needed to do, and as a result, Jackson Smith-Njigba was named the Offensive Player of the Year. They were the most complete team in the NFL this year, and I have no complaints. They are filthy good. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going right to the Jeff Fisher tier. Prior to this season, I said that the Buccaneers would win the NFC South if they did the absolute bare minimum. And oh boy, they couldn't even do that. They started off pretty hot, but fell off completely near the end of the year. Their fall off was so bad, they beat the Panthers in a potentially division-clinching game, and they still couldn't reach the playoffs. The Bucs' expectations were meager, even with conversations about them being elite that ended right as they began. Jeffy Fish. The Tennessee Titans are moving to the rebuilt all year, but phase 1 is complete tier. Cam Ward's expectations for 2025 were pretty mediocre, but that's not because of him as a prospect. It's because of the team around him. Brian Callahan was still clearly failing as a head coach. He had very little support around him. The defense had some pieces, some of which they aren't trading, but overall the Titans struggled big time. But as the year went on, Cam Ward and the Titans snuck out some victories. They performed really well. It gave Titans fans a genuine belief for the future. With Robert Saleh and Brian Dable coming in, Titans fans should feel much better about the rebuild and about Cam Ward's long-term prognosis. And finally, the Washington Commanders. I didn't forget about this tier. We are taking them right to the Kansas City Football Chiefs tier. I told you we weren't leaving it alone. The Commanders had really high expectations for 2025, and for good reason. Jaden Daniels had just gotten the Commanders to the NFC title game a season ago. Terry McLaurin had just gotten a contract extension, and Dan Snyder selling the Commanders made supporting them no longer feel like a war crime. However, this team fell off horrifically. 5-12, Jaden Daniels was hurt for most of the year, and their defense was atrocious. I don't love where this team is at right now, but they fell despicably below everyone's expectations for them. People had a lot of hope, even some Super Bowl hope, but they were a legitimately bad team this year, which justifies the Chiefs tier. And that's our list. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you like this video, click the like button and click the subscribe button to get the sexiest sports content on the internet. But for now, stay tuned for more sports content that you didn't ask for.